start with a moment of silence, please. And please remember what happened 2 weeks ago. Thank you. Please rise for the pledge. And Colonel, would you lead us in the pledge?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Debbie, would you give the roll call, please?
Certainly. Vice Mayor Semaglia.
Present.
Commissioner Vignola. Commissioner Daly.
Here.
Commissioner Carter.
Present.
Deputy City Manager Melissa Heller. City Attorney John Hearn.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, our first order of business this morning, we have some presentations, Dale. Yes.
I'll hold you. I'll help you.
Is Ernie here? Ernie Kubasak? Wow. He should have been here. I say that because he's a friend of mine, and I know he was looking forward to this morning, so I have to give him a call. Okay. Ernie is going to, we're just giving a proclamation for Our Town America, which starts next week. Yeah, the City Commission supports and encourages an awareness of community spirit and takes pride in the continuing growth of Coral Springs. For 39 successful years, Our Town America has served as a time for residents to come together and celebrate our community spirit. Therefore, we, the City Commission of Coral Springs, proclaim March 9th, 10th, 11th, 2018 as Our Town America Family Festival, signed by the Mayor and the rest of the City Commission. You want to hold on to that? Yeah. Okay, you're going to take care of this next one?
Good morning, everyone. It's that time each quarter where we recognize our employees for providing outstanding service, not only to the public, but to one another internally. So I'm going to call up several employees to be recognized. If you'd come down here into the front, Lou will be sure you get your certificate, and we'll give you a chance to introduce yourself. First, I'd like to call Henry Cantor from the police department. No Henry. Todd Carlino, Financial Services. Dave Dittman, Police Department. Seth Heitmeyer, Parks and Recreation. They can line up. Go ahead. All right. Karen Niemeyer, Police Department. Is that Henry? Henry Cantor, Police Department. Natasha Payams, Police Department. Oh, Parks and Recreation, sorry. She didn't realize she was getting transferred. Richard Shout, Police Department. Michael Schroeder, Development Services. Keith Shriver, Parks and Recreation. And finally, Patrick Thurman, Police Department. Much farther to walk than the old commission chambers, right? Lou, did you want to say a few words?
Yeah, you know, there were two components that make the city of Coral Springs, the city of Coral Springs, second to none in the state, maybe even the country. They're going too far? And that's the volunteers and our employees. And between them all, there is no stopping the things that we do. So let's hear a big hand for all these outstanding employees.
If you could just introduce who you are and how long you've been with the city. We have a lot of longevity in the city, some great people here. I'd like to give them a second to introduce themselves and then stay for a quick picture.
Keith Shriver, Arborist Coordinator, Parks and Recreation. I've been here 7 years.
Natasha Pamps, front desk attendant at the Aquatic Complex, and I've been here for 2.5 years.
Todd Carlino, the Department of Finance. I've been here for 5.5 years.
Dave Dittman, Police Department, School Resource Officer, and I've been here for 3 years.
Seth Heitmeyer, Parks and Rec Coordinator. Been here 4.5 years.
Karen Niemeyer, Dispatch, 6 years.
Henry Cantor, Dispatch, 1 year and 4 months.
Richard Shout, Police Department. I've been here for 8 years.
Mike Schroeder, Code Compliance, going on 4 years.
Patrick Thurman, Police Department. This is my 27th year.
Okay, do we have any public comment?
We do. Vice Mayor, I have so far 7 signed speakers. The first is Barry Gluck, followed by Diane Simpson, Marty Shank, Len Oken. Is Mr. Gluck here? Diane Simpson?
Hello?
Well, well. Marty Shank.
Good morning, everybody. With all due respect, Mr. Vice Mayor, silence is not an option about what happened at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas. I saw an interview the evening of the shooting of Coral Springs Commissioner Dan Daly, where he was asked the question, why can a 19-year-old not buy a beer, but he can buy an assault rifle? His answer was that this is not the time for that discussion. He, along with Senator Rubio, Governor Scott, and a lot of our elected officials are the same. This is not the time. Well, the voices of the souls of those killed in Parkland, in Pulse, in Orlando, those in Las Vegas, the church in Southland, Texas, and the children of Sandy Hook say otherwise. This is the time for the conversation on assault rifles and also on mental health. Families of the victims do not want to hear the platitudes and the prayers of the elected officials that have been bought and paid for by the NRA. What have you done to this point? They want to hear the discussion on what has to be done to solve this problem. Shootings are becoming more pervasive in this country. Mass killing with assault rifles are too common a place. If these politicians do not listen to the voices of the constituents, they will be haunted by the voices of the past and future victims of the carnage that they have enabled and have done nothing to stop. We need a chorus of voices to be heard that speak for the victims and their families to get through to these politicians who say that now is not the time. Find the time or get out of the way so others can do something that you won't. I don't want to ever hear again from an elected official that this is not the time. No one should ever vote for anyone who uses the phrase, now is not the time. If not now, when? It is my hope that this city commission can develop the political courage to show the state legislature that the Second Amendment is not more important than the First. You need to discuss banning assault weapon type rifle sales in the city of Coral Springs. Thank you.
Hey, Vice Mayor, if I can jump in for a second.
Commissioner?
Just in Commissioner Daley's defense on this, I did not watch the program he was on. I will tell you that I know Commissioner Daley's been up in Tallahassee working very hard on our behalf to go ahead and take action when it related to assault weapons and other type of gun laws. Being in front of Stoneman Douglas with Commissioner Daley that day in a school that both he and I graduated from, it's a very, very emotional evening. I would not, and I have not, I don't think, done an interview related to this, but I will tell you there are a lot of things happening, and Commissioner Daley's been aggressive on it and going forward. I think for anybody out there in the public, we have a commission that is extremely, extremely accessible. Unlike some of our other elected bodies out there, our cell phone numbers we give out to the public, we discuss with people all the time, you know, our opinions on things, and we hear from the public their opinion on things and work with people. I would urge people before you come up here and try to do an attack on someone who's out there, this is basically a volunteer position, who's working their tail off on all the residents in Coral Springs' behalf, to maybe reach out to him or somebody else and see, and you know, I don't want to politicize this and make an attack on one elected official or another elected official. I think that's a shame. I see that happening everywhere, and it's disgusting to me. I understand that things have to be done, but I would hope that, especially in the face of a tragedy like this, that we could find a way to work through our differences and come up with good action plans to actually make a difference. And I'd like to commend Commissioner Daley for doing that. But again, if anyone's got any concerns or whatever, please reach out to us and see how we're feeling. I know we've been bombarded with emails and calls and different things, but we're trying our best to get back to people. But I would hope, again, if someone's going to go ahead and attack somebody, please reach out and see how somebody feels about an issue before you go ahead and do something like that. Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor.
Vice Mayor, if I can jump in for a second.
Yeah, go ahead, Dan.
Thank you, and Commissioner Vignola, I appreciate that. Thank you. And for those that are not aware, as Commissioner Vignola mentioned, I am literally in Tallahassee. That's why I'm not there today. Marty, let me just attempt to put your comments and that interview into context, and it may not be what you want to hear, but it's what I'm going to say. 10 minutes before that interview, I had someone sobbing in my arms because they had lost a loved one. So if I wasn't ready to hit the political softball out of the park at that exact moment, I'm sorry, but it was not the exact time. There were still I hate to say it, there were still families that were not aware that their loved ones were not coming home that day. So since then, I've been, as Commissioner Vignola mentioned, in Tallahassee, advocating for the passage of the bills up here. And locally, last week, if you had been in attendance at our meeting, you would have seen that I proposed a local ordinance prohibiting the retail sale of large capacity magazines. So I would have preferred certainly that you give me a call before coming today, but I appreciate you coming and I appreciate you speaking up, and it's an important issue, and I think I join the rest of my commission in moving forward on this issue. As I'm sure you're aware, under Florida law, we are very, very restricted as a local government as to what we can do. And that's one of the things I'm trying to change up here in Tallahassee. We can be removed from office. We can be fined civilly. We can be sued. It creates a private cause of action where any individual who feels affected by our legislation can sue us, and the city cannot defend that suit. So I just want to air that all out. And moving forward during Commissioner comments in a little bit, Marty, if you stick around and others, you'll see just what I'm hoping we can accomplish as a commission and move forward. So I would ask that you stay tuned. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Vice Mayor, my next speaker, I have Len Oken, followed by Nick St. Cavish and Miguel Lopez.
Morning.
Morning.
I have never been to a commissioners meeting. I've never been to a town hall. I've been what they call a sleeping dog and have not participated in local government at all because I felt that I could not have any impact. Today I stand before you and I am what they said in the movie, madder than hell. And I can't take it anymore. And we're here with some of our friends who are in the same position. I have a voice, and so I want to use my voice to talk to the commissioners. Unfortunately, there are 14 students and 3 teachers who were murdered as a result of assault weapons, and they don't have a voice. So I choose to speak for them, and there are no people here from Stillman Douglas, because they're in school, and that's where they should be. So there's got to be an adult in the room. I ask the city commissioners to pass a resolution, write and pass a resolution to ban assault weapons, high-capacity magazines, and gun stocks from the sale of those items in Coral Springs. I know that there's a legal issue, but also there's Delray. I asked that Coral Springs join other communities such as Delray, Boca Raton, and Coral Gables in its effort to pass the same rules of banning assault weapons, high-capacity magazines, and gun stocks for the good of all of our community and in the name of the people who were killed and murdered on February 14th in our community. This is our town, my town, your town, and all our citizens' towns. And, that's really what I came to say. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you. John?
Thank you.
Mr. Hearn, would you like to address that?
Sure. I do know Coral Gables at first reading passed an ordinance, which I understand that they are reconsidering at this point. So what the law is under 790.33 of the Florida statutes, it's what's called a super preemption, which expressly bans any municipality or government agency from addressing firearms or ammunition. In fact, the ordinance says that that the legislature is occupying the whole field of regulation of firearms and ammunition. What the super preemption is, if that is anyone elected official knowingly and willingly violates that statute, the governor has the ability to immediately remove the elected official from office. And anyone who is affected by that can sue, not just the governor's office. And as far as the individual elected officials, if they are part of passing an ordinance directly in violation, which, for example, if you prohibited the semi-automatic rifles, it's expressly in direct violation of that ordinance, you can then be sued individually. The city cannot represent you. You'll be subject to a fine, but the more important part is the attorney's fees that you'd have to pay. In addition, for each individual who's been affected by that, the city would have to, can be sued and would have to pay up to $100,000 per individual to be affected. So unfortunately, the legislature at this time has completely taken any authority away from the local government. Later on, we'll be talking about a resolution and other actions we can take. Without getting too far into it, I have a meeting tomorrow with the Broward League of Cities and their city attorneys and some elected officials to discuss causes of action that hopefully will try to limit this as a constitutional issue, especially the super preemption issue, because of how obviously state law has the ability to preempt cities on many things. This is the only statute that has this super preemption, which puts this individual liability for even arguably discussing it in great detail, any expenses that the city uses. So that's the predicament, unfortunately, that this body is in, but we'll be talking about it later and things we can do and seeking authorization for bringing a lawsuit if that's the will of this commission. So,
Thank you. I know I've had some comments given to me, if I may. Well, why don't you guys pass something and get arrested and go to jail? What good would your city commissioners do sitting in jail? We're here to help run your city and to do the things that you need to get done. So for us to do something like that would be kind of ludicrous. I just couldn't understand us doing something like that.
They're not going to
Mayor,
every city
Vice Mayor.
Broward County.
Vice Mayor, if you want to recognize the person, they would need to come up.
State their name and address.
We should probably go through the public comments, and then if the individual wants to be part of the public comments, they can speak.
Yeah, did you want to come up and make a public comment there? Sure. Yeah, just state your name and your address and.
My name is Judy Holt. I live at 1639 Northwest 82nd Avenue, Coral Springs. I hear what you gentlemen are saying to the two gentlemen that spoke, but I would also just state that there is strength in numbers. So I would think that if enough cities in Broward County, Miami-Dade, were to band together. I mean, I was part of the 60s anti-war movement, and we were little people, but there were a lot of us. And that's kind of the way I look at this. The Parkland students, I have so much respect for them. And I think if you all band together with the other cities, I mean, I just can't imagine that Tallahassee would have that much power to arrest all of you. That's all I have to say.
Okay.
Vice Mayor, if I can jump in for a second.
Go ahead.
And ma'am, I didn't get your name, but as as John Hearn just mentioned, so the Broward League of Cities, which I'm the president of, held a meeting of the mayors of Broward County last week and their legal counsels to discuss our options under current Florida law and what we can do and what we could do moving forward. And again, there's another meeting. We've whittled it down to just the city attorneys tomorrow to decide the best legal strategy moving forward. But that is essentially the plan, is a group of municipalities, a group of affected individuals will take on the state. So I would ask again, I know it's an emotional issue. I know it's an important issue. I'm literally bringing it up today in my commissioner comments. And we'll go from there.
Thanks, Dan.
The next speaker, Nick St. Cavish, followed by Miguel Lopez, followed by Gail Price Wise.
morning. My name is Nick St. Cavish. My wife and I have been residents of Coral Springs for over 39 years. Like virtually everyone I've talked to, we're sickened by the Parkland shooting. I have no hope that the Florida legislature or the U.S. government is going to institute any sort of meaningful gun reform. But I do have an idea, which I think we can do, to take some of these guns off the streets and make it safe for all of us. I would like to see our city institute a gun buyback program. And whatever incentives we use, whether it's cash, gift cards, which have been done in other cities, I would make them especially attractive to people with assault rifles to take advantage of it. Programs such as these have been very successful, many of them instituted after Sandy Hook in many cities: Los Angeles, Detroit, San Francisco, Oakland, Tucson, and Opelika, Florida. I think it's time to institute one of these now. I don't have to remind the commission that the assault rifle that was used in the Parkland shooting was purchased in Coral Springs, and I think it's time to take action. I'm therefore asking you to direct the police department to institute and run a buyback program in this city. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Any other speakers?
Miguel Lopez.
Oh.
Good morning. My name is Miguel Lopez. I am back in Coral Springs. I lived here 30 years ago for a period of time. Then I moved north, and I am back home here with my wife. I was not planning to really make a speech, but I never declined an opportunity to do so, so I will do it. I understand the limitation that this body has. I mean, I understand that you are under constraints that have been thoroughly explained. However, I very much support the comment that when we look at this as a political issue, the strength is in the numbers. And it's not just the numbers of people in the council and the number of people at this meeting. We need to somehow get the support from the people, and only that pressure will make the legislators and the politicians to act. I am convinced of that. And by the way, I heard repeatedly things like, this is not the time. Well, this is the time. I fully support that. We need to act now. You could argue that it's late because many people have paid the price because we haven't found the time. So one thing that I would ask is to give this great priority. And the other thing is the comment about don't politicize this. It's impossible to politicize. This is a political issue. Let's understand that clearly. That's what it is. It has been. If you don't understand that, just visit the NRA website, and you will realize to the extent that this is a political issue. So let's not kid ourselves. And the other thing reminds me of Abraham Lincoln in his speech at Cooper Union. A lot of concessions have been made. I hear things like, well, I want control, but I own a weapon. Like, you need to apologize for wanting measures in terms of gun control. And the fact of the matter is, no, I don't own a weapon. I don't want to take the weapons away from people. I think that what we need is reasonable measures put in place. But the idea of getting together and sounds Pollyanna to me. The fact of the matter is that there is a group here that needs to be defeated, and we need to defeat them, otherwise nothing is going to happen in this arena. So please, prioritize this. Do what you can from your position. I understand the limitations, but it's really time for us to act. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Gail Price Wise. First, I want to say that I support what others have just said. I also am sickened and heartsick over what happened in Parkland, and I'm looking to you, our leaders, to do something about it. I want to speak in support of Dan Daly's initiatives. I understand that he's proposing something that would outlaw the sale of high-capacity magazines in Coral Springs, and is looking to show that that is actually not in violation of the preemption requirements. So that as a strategy is something that I support. I also am in support of what others have said, that cities need to get together to actually challenge the constitutionality of the preemption laws in Tallahassee. And that, of course, requires a lot of courage on the behalf of us as citizens and you as leaders. And lastly, I want to say something about the Constitutional Revision Commission. As I understand it, the Florida Constitutional Revision Commission meets every 20 years, and by chance happens to be meeting now, and they have the power to put on the ballot a constitutional amendment that would allow the voters to decide on banning assault weapons. That to me seems like perhaps the easiest way to ban assault weapons throughout the state, because we could circumvent our legislators who have shown themselves to be too controlled by the NRA to actually do it. But for those of us in this chamber, I would encourage you to go to the website of the Constitutional Revision Commission. There is a list of the members of the Constitutional Revision Commission. We should be calling each and every one of them and asking them to put this on the ballot so that the voters can vote on banning assault weapons. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Go ahead, Dan.
Vice Mayor, very briefly, at our special commission meeting last week, the mayor spoke about the Constitutional Revision Commission, and he is pushing for that, and I know this commission has supported that push, so I'm glad you brought that up. It's a good point.
Any other speakers?
Vice Mayor, I have one more sign speaker, then we can go out. Reverend Craig Watts.
Friends, first of all, I support everything that Gail said and hope that you will pursue the measures that she has suggested.
May I have your name and your address, please,
My
for
name
the
is
record?
Craig Watts. Again, I'm minister at Royal Palm Christian Church. I've been in this community about 18 years. This tragedy has touched all of our lives in some way. All of us either know someone or have personal losses. And for some of us, this isn't the first time. My son was at Pulse. Thank God he wasn't killed. But he was there. This should not continue. And your voices need to be raised loud, persistent, and there needs to be a confrontation with our state government. I hope you will band together with other commissioners of other cities so that the state government cannot continue squelching efforts to, in reasonable ways, keep our citizens safe. This has to end. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak? Did you want to speak?
Good morning. My name is Christina Yannian. My address is 2199 Northwest 107th Drive. I've been a Coral Springs resident for 16 years, and I was a Parkland teacher for 10 years. I had no intention of coming up here and speaking to you, but I do want to address, Commissioner Smaglia, what you said about going to jail. What would that do? I guess that same question was asked to thousands of teenagers who walked out. And I know that there's people in this room that don't agree with it because of the logistical nightmare that it created. But those teenagers stood up for something. They stood up for themselves. They stood up for their friends. I encountered children, because I walked with my 9-year-old daughter, and my 15-year-old son walked out of school with my support. I encountered teenagers who walked as far as Coconut Creek in the heat. I encountered school administrators who walked as far in high heels. So maybe it would send the message to your young people and your upcoming voters that you would stand for them. Because I promise you, you have an entire army behind you between the residents of Coral Springs and Parkland who would support you. But to sit there and say that this isn't politicized or what would going to jail do, at least it would show us that there is a stand of support. Kids aren't watching this, they're hopefully in school, even though this is a civics lesson. But do something, even if it's symbolic. Yes, get together with your other cities. I do not want to have to take another one of my children to a funeral for his murdered friend. I should not have had to explain to my son about what an open casket funeral is like and stand there with my former students crying. It's unacceptable on every level. So you need to do something. I don't know what it is, but figure it out. And if it means spending a night in jail, then guess what? You're right up there with the civil rights activists who actually took a stand. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else want to?
Morning, Andy Caston, 10532 Northwest 56th Drive in Coral Springs. I didn't plan on coming up here, but I just had a suggestion, and based on what everybody was talking about, I agree to some extent, but I really feel that this commission, I know, because I know these people up here, will do everything in their power to help this community, but I think it's ridiculous to have them put their neck on the line to spend a night in jail or have to pay $5,000 that the city can't even cover them on. Rather, this is all, excuse me, this is all our fault, okay? We have to own this, folks, because we are the voters, okay? The people that we put into office at the state level and at the federal level have to hold the blame. And so therefore, we are the only people that can make this happen. We have to vote these people out. And guess what? The millennials, for the first time ever, are going to outnumber us baby boomers. So all these kids that you know that are able to vote, that haven't voted, you need to get them motivated to vote. Because with those numbers, just as you said, numbers, right? With those numbers and with us as voters, voting these people out of office, and that is what they are scared to death about, is the only thing that is going to change the laws in this country. So while I do agree with you, okay, and I do know that this city commission should do everything in their power, legally in their power, it is us, the people, that have been forgotten in this process, and we, the people, are the only ones that are going to change what happens in this country. Thanks.
Thank you. Yes.
My name is Christine Friss. I live at 5009 Northwest 103rd Ave in Coral Springs. Good morning, commissioners. First of all, thank you. I do come to a lot of meetings. I am a parent of a student at Stoneham Douglas. I don't know if there's any other parents here. My son was one of those children that hid and texted and called and cried and thought he was going to die. He was not in that building, but close enough, and he saw things no child should ever see. And we went to a lot of funerals, and my good friend lost her son. And I spent the last 2 weeks every day helping her get through that and her friends, and I appreciate all the support that the community gave us. My point for bringing this up is, and this goes off a little bit, but I've also been involved with hanging banners and bringing food and everything that the schools and the PTAs and the residents have done. And I think we need to have a joint effort between Coral Springs and Parkland. I've been bringing up oftentimes to Commissioner Udine that it was not just Parkland students that died, it was Coral Springs students. And I think we need to come together as a city. There's a lot of banter back and forth about Parkland and Coral Springs not liking each other. I think this is the time that we come together and we do that. I think that's important to have. So if it's a way to do a committee, I would suggest that please to be put into place. The second thing I would ask is about the bond issue that's coming up. It's very close to what happened. I'm not sure the turnout that we would be able to get because people are still recovering from this tragedy, and I would ask, if possible, that that be postponed. Thank you.
Thank you. No? Yes.
Would it be possible if I could speak to you after the meeting, because there's a fundraising effort for the students that we're having trouble reaching them. And there is no animosity between Coral Springs and Parkland. That was back 30 years ago.
I did want to jump in real quick on the bond point. Chris, you know, it's an important issue, and I can understand why we may want to push it off, but at this point, that's not legally an option. There have been, my understanding is close to 15,000 absentee ballots were mailed 4 or 5 weeks ago. So as far as the supervisor of elections is concerned, it's an active election, and there is no opportunity to push it off at this point.
Thanks, Dan.
Couple things. One, talk about the kids walking, whatever. I didn't publicize it, but I went out there and walked with the kids from Glades, because the kids from Glades, from what I was told, weren't going to have adults out there walking with them, and I thought it was important to do it. I don't think people understand that there is not a playbook on this, okay? There's not, you know, being up here as an elected official in this community, there's no playbook. There's no playbook when I went to the hospital out in Fort Lauderdale and visited a kid and his family that was shot multiple times in the school that, you know, I went to. There's no necessarily right or wrong, and I want people to understand that. When I say politicizing, there's other reasons behind the scenes I'm not going to get into here, but when I mention to a certain individual about politicizing, if you just put their Dan Daly and his name into Google search, you might find out. You know, but I really want people to understand, there is no playbook for us up here. This is not something that, you know, we want to experience. You know, the four most important people in my life go to school every single day, and to be honest with you, Nicholas Cruz walked right by where three of the most precious things on earth to me were, and they weren't on lockdown at the time, that school. So I just want people to understand, you know, just because we're not out there saying this or saying that, whatever, listen, gun reform, I absolutely 100% agree. As the only elected Republican here in Coral Springs, I do agree. I've had conversations with our governor. I've had conversations with lots of people. I just don't go ahead and put it all over social media, and I'm not trying to get the attention off of this. I don't think that's what we need in that way. There are a lot of other ways that we could go ahead and prevent these types of tragedies, and we should not be looking just at gun reform. We should be looking top to bottom at multitude of ways to stop any type of violence that can affect our children, our teachers, our friends, our families while they're at school. I want people to understand that. And just because, you know, up here we might not be showing that, you know, anger or whatever, trust me, we're pissed off, okay? And when we're making those phone calls to people, okay, that you guys don't know about, like my call to the governor, okay, we're pissed off, okay? We're sad, we're heartbroken, okay? And I don't know what each member of our commission has done or whatever, but I'll tell you what, guys, man, I talk to cops I know that are some of the toughest guys I know, and they're heartbroken. They're heartbroken, our cops, okay? Our firefighters, the toughest people, the first responders, right? And it's okay, yeah, you see them on TV, they go in, they do their job, but you know what? At the end of the day, they got to go home to their families, and some of them are never going to be right because of this. There's a lot of other things happening, and I just want people to understand. I understand, you know, you want this to be the only issue, but for us as a commission, as a city, as our staff, there's a lot of other things going on. I called our police chief last night, our new police chief, you know, see how the new job's going. And he said, Larry, I'm just worried about the guys and gals of the Coral Springs Police Department. I got other worries about it. So there's a lot of other things happening. And I know this is the simple issue to say, hey, you know, assault weapons, and that's the big thing. But assault weapons alone are not going to stop school shootings, guys. It's not. And if we think that's what's going to stop it, and yes, it makes it easier to go ahead and do it, and I'm 100% in favor of getting rid of them. I think they never should be out there. But don't think for 1 second that the 5 million assault rifles that are already out there are just going to disappear. It's not going to happen. There's a lot of other things, and I've talked about it for years, school safety. I've talked to our school board members. I don't do it publicly necessarily, but there's some things I'm going to talk about a little later on things that I think are simple, low-hanging fruit that they can take care of. You know, we're talking about a bond issue for us. What about the school board taking action and doing a school board bond issue for the November election to go ahead and take care of some of the safety issues that they cry poor on? So understand that just because, you know, and Dan's up there doing a great job for us in Tallahassee right now, and I know some of the other members have been going up there. I think our mayor's up there. Some of us are going to Washington, D.C. to work on certain things up there. But, you know, we're doing the best that we can in the framework that we're allowed. And I really can't stress that enough, guys. We're very limited on what we can do. However, if we were to go ahead and be removed from office and pay $5,000, this job cost me a lot more than $5,000 to do. It wouldn't necessarily hurt me. However, I think with our knowledge and our understanding of certain things that are happening, I think it'd be a detriment for our community and for our schools and stuff, especially considering last night I was on the phone with 4 different principals in the city talking about different ways to help secure their campuses. No, I just want everyone to know, just because we're not screaming and yelling and you don't see us angry here or out in front of TV cameras, I'm not going to go in front of TV cameras on this one. It's just not my thing. But there are things that we could do and work the best way that we can on behalf of our residents and look at things top to bottom. Mr. Vice Mayor, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have anything to? Yes, sir.
My name is Kathy Cannell. I live at 8830 Northwest 55th Place in Coral Springs. I've been a resident for 20 years. Commissioner Vignola, I'd like to thank you for everything that you just said because you provided me the perfect segue to what I'd like to say. You said there's no playbook, and you're absolutely right, there isn't, but we've got to have one now. Because what I saw the Senate do last week in Tallahassee was horrific to me. What I'm seeing the House do now is equally horrific to me. They don't seem to really want to do anything to make any changes here, except throw $67 million to arming teachers, which makes no sense to me. And apparently teachers agree with me, but that's neither here nor there. I like to solve problems. I agree with everything everyone said here today. I'd like to ask if the city can initiate programs to help support teenagers, institute places, activities, perhaps a volunteer mentor program. We have some wonderful people here today who I think have a lot to share with our young people, to support our young people, to talk to them, to give them a safe place to go, to give them a safe place to talk. And I successfully launched 2 teenage girls, and I'm still standing, so I'm happy to help initiate anything in that regard. I don't know if there's money in the budget. I don't know if there's ever been a time where the commission has discussed this. But our teenagers need help. A lot of them do not have the support at home. They don't have the support at school. They're bullied. Even now in the legislature, they're throwing money at a program that would provide vouchers for bullied students to go to a different school. But we're not addressing the bully. We're not addressing why children are being bullied, why they're bullying. We're not addressing why children can't accept one another, because teachers now, in addition to teaching, will have to be armed and learn how to get students out of a very dangerous situation if we continue on the path that we're on. So, with regard to a playbook, we now need one, and I really hope that the city of Coral Springs will take the lead in developing a playbook. And if I can do anything to help, I hope that you'll call me. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else want to speak? Okay, we're going to wrap this up. I'll just wait for my comments at the end of the meeting. All right, there are no special meeting announcements today, right, Debbie? Correct. Okay. Consent. Anybody want to pull anything off consent?
Move consent.
Second.
Nobody?
Moved by Commissioner Vignola, seconded by Commissioner Deli.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Pass unanimous.
Vice Mayor, and with the permission of the commission, so that the folks that are in the audience don't have to wait as we go through all of these other presentations, can we? Are you open to rearranging the agenda and taking commissioner comment at this time?
I don't see a problem, do you? It's okay? Yeah, okay. Did you want to start, Dan?
That's fine. So thank you, Vice Mayor. So what I'll do, as you can see, it was added to the agenda. I know we've all gotten a copy of it. The City Attorney's Office has seen it and sent it to each of us. Resolution 2018-007 on reducing gun violence. This would do substantially the following things. It urges Florida Governor Rick Scott to take action to pass gun reform, even if it means extending the 2018 legislative session, which I'm going to be honest, folks, they are going into the third reading on the House side today, and I don't think the votes are there. So they may end up extending the legislative session. But this would urge the legislature and the governor to raise the minimum age to allow the purchase of guns and ammunition to 21, enact legislation regarding the red flag law to allow extreme risk protection orders such as those proposed in House Bill 231 and Senate Bill 530. It eliminates the loopholes in the private transfer of weapons and requires full background checks for sales, all sales and transfers of firearms, and enact the gun safety legislation set forth in Senate Bill 196 and House Bill 219 to place constitutional restrictions on the sale and transfer of assault-style weapons and high-capacity magazines. And finally, would ask that they repeal the prohibition and punitive penalties in Section 790.33 Florida statutes against us as elected officials. That's substantially the outline of the resolution. For those in the audience, this resolution would be us urging the legislature to act on these issues. That's not governance, and I'll get to that in a second if I can get approval. So I'm asking for approval of this body to pass this resolution at this time.
Any questions on that? Motion?
Second.
Move to approve.
Move to second it. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Move unanimous.
All right, so thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for that. Next up, as I had mentioned at our last, at our commission workshop that became a special commission meeting last week, I, with the help of policy and legal experts, had drafted an ordinance that we believe is arguably not preempt 790.33. That ordinance would restrict the sale of large capacity magazines, aftermarket, sold in the city of Coral Springs. But the concern was, and if you recall at last week's meeting, everyone in attendance, every elected official in attendance was on board with that ordinance, but for the punitive provisions. So basically, if the punitive provisions were not there, it's something that we would have enacted as a legislative body within the city of Coral Springs. So what I'm asking for at this point, what I asked for after coming to that consensus at the last meeting, was the opportunity to discuss our options with Broward mayors and city attorneys, which is what we did last week. We did hold a meeting of mayors, several mayors from across the county, and their legal counsel came, the county commission, county attorney came, the the Charter Review Commission in Broward County, representatives from them also came. So what we determined was that we do want to proceed with some sort of declaratory judgment action against the state. So for those unfamiliar, declaratory judgment action would basically petition a court to say, hey, are the punitive provisions of 790.33 unconstitutional as violative of the rights of elected officials to govern in their legislative duties? So with that in mind, we are holding another meeting of the city attorneys tomorrow. I know John Hearn is going to be there and several others from across the county to discuss the best legal option moving forward. So what I would ask for, and this is going to require a vote, is permission, giving John Hearn, our city attorney, the permission to draft or join a declaratory judgment action against the state relating to 790.33. And I would make that motion.
John, do you have that?
Yep, so we did have the meeting last week. I did meet and had a conference call with the Everytown for Gun Safety, who is a national organization. They have attorneys in-house as well as national firms outside that will also be in attendance tomorrow. And we should have numerous city attorneys. We should have the vast majority of the population of Broward County represented. And we've all agreed that we are going to do something that's meaningful and not that's splashy, if that makes any sense. So what we want to do is effect the change that we can. So as lawyers, we want to file a lawsuit that we believe a judge will agree with us in a deck action And for example, we're considering the limiting of these magazines that carry numerous guns that assist in this type of mass shooting. These super preemptions that we talked about is another issue we're looking at. We're also looking at potentially constitutional violations, because the fact that arguably speaking about this the way we are, arguably, someone could go ahead and say you're negatively affecting guns, and the entire field of gun regulation has been taken by the state. So it's a bit of a moving target, but we do recognize the urgency, and that's why Commissioner Daley has asked, and I'm more than happy to go ahead tomorrow, start moving in the direction that is, again, is real change that we can make and get in front of a judge. Every town, to the extent that every town can be helpful to us, they have offered their services pro bono for free, and with their expertise, I think that could be very helpful. Obviously, we'll keep each of you individually.
And to put it, to just talk a second on every town, you know, I've had several phone calls with them. As John Hearn mentioned, they are offering to do it pro bono. They use a national law firm here in Florida, Proskauer Rose. There would be no cost to us or to other cities that join them in this fight. And I'll give you an example of their expertise. I actually had a call. One of the attorneys from Proskauer led the charge fighting similar legislation in, I think it's North Carolina and Virginia, and won those cases on behalf of Mayor Bloomberg of New York. So they certainly know what they're doing, and I think it's something that we definitely need to pursue. And look, for those that don't regularly follow the commission meetings, I think everybody up on our dais is not a fan of state preemption. I certainly fight state preemption for, you know, and granting of home rule authority to cities on a daily basis, especially with this legislature. The state law in Florida as it relates to 790-33 is probably the most egregious example of preemption, probably in the country. I don't know that everyone fully understands the impact that several lawsuits, I mean, you're talking several, any impacted party. So that's a gun owner, that's the NRA, that's Florida Carry, that's any affected gun owner could arguably sue us individually. So it has had a chilling effect on elected officials all across this state. I believe it's unconstitutional, and that's why I'm making the motion that we file a declaratory judgment action and try and get it overturned.
Thank you, Dan. Any other comments? Larry?
There's an open motion, Mr. Vice Mayor.
Doesn't he need an approval for the motion, for
Yes,
John to
look,
represent us?
Commissioner,
Oh, yeah.
what I read, the motion would be to authorize me to take the necessary actions to move this forward. Again, it would be a deck action. It would not be anything that would be expressly in violation of the statute. It would not be anything that would put the commission at risk. Because remember, what's not really been talked about, the fact, we're talking about this super preemption and the fact that the attorney's fees and cost in violation of all sorts of laws. But the fact that the state regulates firearms is the same as regulating speed limits by the DOT. So that's something that they're allowed to do, and that's where we need the political action to help us. But on this, we're looking to back down the overreaching, as we see it, through a deck action.
Move to approve.
Move to approve. Second, Larry. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved unanimously.
Thank
John, you keep us in date.
I'll keep you updated.
Thank you.
The meeting's tomorrow. I'll be calling you all tomorrow or Friday morning to update you and continue to update you.
I'd like to thank my colleagues for your support on that issue. You know, you do have to get a little bit into the weeds to fully understand it, so I know it's not the easiest thing in the world to follow, but I do, based on the conversations I've had with John and others, think it's the right way to go with this issue. And look, you know, ultimately, if a court rules that the provisions are the punitive provisions are unconstitutional, then we can go ahead and move forward with things like the ordinance that I brought up last week. So I appreciate that. I wanted to give everybody a little bit of an update up here in Tallahassee. It is definitely frustrating. You know, for those, you know, many of you know this, but prior to being elected, I was legislative aide I have followed Florida and the Florida legislature for at least 10 years now. And while certainly not perfect, and while they certainly need to go further, the bills that are working their way on final approval that passed the Senate and is working to pass the House are probably, and I say this without exaggeration, the largest retreat for the NRA in Florida in 20 years, hands down. When you look at what point it has come to in the state of Florida, where the NRA is out of things to do. They are out of reasonable restrictions to chip away at. So they file things like the Docs and Glocks bill. If you guys remember, this is the bill that a pediatrician could ask new parents if there was a pool for pool safety reasons, could ask if there were chemicals under the sink for baby-proofing your kitchens, but was specifically prohibited under state law from asking if there was a gun in the home. Because, a doctor asking if there's a gun in the home to make sure that the new parent has a lockbox or a case or something to prevent the child from finding the weapon was so egregious. But that's the kind of thing that is getting done in Tallahassee with the NRA these days. Now, luckily, that law was overturned by the courts, I believe, last year, John. But I say that to give an example of how far and how powerful the NRA has been in Florida for so long. So while the bills proposed today are not perfect, they are certainly a step in the right direction, and it moves the needle. So it gives us the opportunity to come back the following year or during a special session or as soon as possible to make other recommendations, to make other changes. Look, for those of you that support an assault weapons ban, I support an assault weapons ban. With this legislature, it was never going to happen. So we have to look at other ways to do that. If that's a constitutional amendment, so be it. Let's do it. If that's waiting till November, voting some folks out and changing the political winds in Tallahassee, that's another option. But I will say that myself, the mayor of Parkland is up here advocating for the passage of these bills, and a letter is being circulated to all of leadership and all members of the House and Senate today, signed by all 17 victims' families supporting the passage of these bills. So I just want to be very clear that this is a step in the right direction. And while, look, the Marshall Plan is probably the worst thing that I've ever heard, and I think it's absolutely ridiculous, it is not coming out of the bill at this point. So at this point, stomping your feet and saying, we're not going to vote for this, we'd rather have nothing than something, is not going to be the solution. And I did want to make it very clear for those that are not aware, the Marshall Plan, look, we fight for home rule every single year, right? I've already talked about that. The Marshall Plan, as currently written in the bill, is optional, based on the option of the school board. Now, I got to tell you, I think it'll be a cold day in heck before the Broward County School Board, the Miami-Dade County School Board, the Palm Beach County School Board, and other school boards across this across this state authorize the Marshall Program. There are some counties, like Hendry, like Polk, where there already are schools that have these programs in place, right? But that's their local option. So to tell folks to vote no against these bills for only that reason, to me, doesn't make sense. This is, again, the largest step forward for gun reform in state history. So I just wanted to update everybody. We'll know more probably this afternoon. And then if it passes the House, it goes to the governor for signature. Also, the bill was amended the other day to remove classroom teachers who exclusively teach. Now, while exclusively is the operative word there, and you would still have some people who are coaches or that lead clubs after school that arguably could participate if the program was authorized, individuals that are strictly classroom teachers are not allowed to participate in the Marshall Program. So I just want to bring everybody up to speed. While it's not perfect, again, it is a step in the right direction. I want to thank my commission for their support. I want to thank the public for your support. Everybody that came out today, this is a very, very important issue. It always has been, and now we are looking to move the needle on all fronts. So thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Dan. George first.
Just to go off topic, because I always do this, and it's been a rough few weeks, but I want to wish my daughter Madison a happy birthday. I'd like to congratulate our new police chief, Clyde Perry. I can't tell you how many people have reached out to me saying that we made the right decision, but we didn't. Our city manager, Mike Goodrum, did. But I'd like to think that if we did make that decision, that would be the decision that we made. And I know you're going to continue to lead our department in an amazing fashion. We have amazing police firefighters in our dispatch here in Coral Springs. I think, no, we know that. I think a lot of our residents know that, but I think now the whole world knows that. And it's sad because I'd rather them not have to. You know, we know that they've always been there. We know that decisions that prior commissions have made, going back for decades, to make sure that public safety was a priority, God forbid something ever happened, did make a difference. And you know, and as much as it's terrible to sit there and think about, there were 17 lives lost on February 14th. There were a lot of lives saved also. I wish we could have gotten there sooner. I know our guys wish they could have gotten there sooner. Yeah, so thank you to you guys, our firefighters, our dispatch. I'm sorry, I can't stop thinking about the fact that my 7-year-old daughter said to my wife, in case of a shooter man at our school, a shooter man guy, is it better to be on the 2nd floor like you, Mommy, or on the 1st floor like me? This is the world we live in now. So it's been tough. And I know it hasn't been that tough on me, on us, as it's been on a lot of other families in our community, but this sucks. And there's no other way to put it. It's been really, really tough. And, you know, there are certain things I think that we could do as a city, and I know Dan's up there fighting the fight up there in Tallahassee. I know some of us are going to be going to D.C. to try to do things, whatever. There's other things we can do. I mean, look, the 790-33 state statute, we've talked about this. I mean, I think it was August of 2012 even we got word back from an outside counsel that we sought to see if there's anything we can do. Back in 2012. This is not something new. This is not something that as a body, and I'm not talking about us as a body, I'm talking about as the commissions prior and our former city manager and our city attorney haven't looked at and tried to affect, guys. This is not like, hey, a new issue that's the past 3 weeks and now we're trying to do something. You know, these commissions have had foresight with this and have gone ahead and looked at ways to try to do these things. You know, I mean, look, there was, for years, our former police chief and other people have asked for certain things from our school board to provide our schools. I got calls from principals last night saying, guess what? It's business as usual. Business as usual isn't going to cut it anymore. And you know, they're concerned and they're worried. That sucks. I mean, there's no other way for that. And there's certain things that need to be done. And for me, you know, one of the things I had brought up, and every day taking my kids into their school, I saw that little lockbox at the front of the school. And I know our fire department has a key that can go in there and get the skeleton key out to go ahead and allow access to the school. But, you know, for me, I'm sitting there going, God forbid a situation. You know, wouldn't it be nice if we didn't have to go to the front of the school to get that lockbox, to get that skeleton key? So we asked, and we asked the school board and the school board staff for skeleton keys for all our schools. I told them we'd keep them in our police department in a lockbox, and no one would have access to it except for our police captains, our deputy chiefs, and our chiefs. Unfortunately, I got a call, and February 14th is my wife and I's wedding anniversary. It's our dating anniversary. It's always a big day for us. But I got a call 5 years to the day before this took place at Douglas saying that they can't trust our police department with skeleton keys to the schools. That sucks. That sucks. There's other things that we've asked for over the years. We've asked to allow us to put lock boxes in the schools and the school resource officers' offices, to put AR-15s that our officers carry inside the schools, but the kids wouldn't see it. It would go inside early in the morning in a duffel bag. It would leave in a duffel bag, but allow our officers to go ahead and fight fire with fire, God forbid something happened. As for live feed cameras to our police department, they don't want to do that either. This way our dispatch center would be able to tell our guys as they're pulling up, and I say guys, it's guys and gals, obviously, to tell them, you know, what's going on and give a live feed into there. You know, I've asked for tourniquets, as sad as that is, because I think we need, you know, we have AEDs in schools, we have AEDs in public places. I think there's certain things that we have to change as a society and think like this. And while, yes, we want changes to be made at the Washington level, at the Tallahassee level, if that doesn't take place, what are we going to do for everything else? And I know there's other people that people are blaming at fault and this and that, whatever. But I think there's certain things we have to do. I know the Broward Chiefs Association has asked certain things of the school board when it comes to school safety and stuff. And I spoke with the governor and talking about an SRO for every thousand students at a school, and is that really enough? I don't know. I don't know what the number is. I do think we back in the budget we passed in September of 2014 did a part-time program to add SROs back into all of our elementary schools. There was some fight back from some people in the community on that, on wasting money, even though it was a cost-neutral program. Because for those of you that don't know, the school board gives us about $46,000 a year per SRO. SROs cost us a lot more money than $46,000 a year, and obviously depending on their pay scale and how long they've been with the department and stuff, that goes up. But in some cases, it's a third of what it costs us to put a school resource officer into a school. I'd like to see more. I think as a commission, we're going to have that discussion if we have to expand our part-time program to add more into some of our high schools and maybe eventually even our middle schools. And we're going to have some tough decisions on things and tough conversations. And I was hoping in the 3 weeks since this took place that the school board would have some more plans on what they thought was appropriate and would talk to people like our chief of police and other chiefs around the county. I don't know if they have necessarily or not, but I do know that as a parent, as the husband of someone who goes to a Broward County public school every day, I'm seeing things where it's concerning. I mean, I literally, because of a safety issue, pulled my own daughter out of her gifted class for a little bit until it got addressed, the issue in her classroom, that a PO was put in 4 years prior. And it was never a purchase order, and it was never taken care of. Once I went ahead and pulled my daughter and made a stink, it got taken care of, but it shouldn't come down to that. Safety issues need to become first. And, when you look at money being spent left and right and whatever, I mean, we've had this conversation as a body here, and I'm ranting a little bit, and I understand, and I'm sorry, I'm a little frustrated. October 10th, 2016, we had a kid bring a gun on campus at Coral Springs High School. A year later, nothing was done with single point of entry, even though the school board went ahead and they told us this is going to be top priority. We drafted a letter. I came to the commission. We drafted a letter and said, hey, this is important for us. Why are we still waiting? We passed this bond in 2014. Plans were done on that single point of entry well before that. I mean, years before that. They want to drop their own plans. Here we are still later, and it still has not happened. There are a lot of other things. I talked to a principal, a retired principal, that told me that they worked in another community in a big city, and it was just well known. When you went into the school, there were certain security things that were going to happen. That was top priority, and they feel like here in South Florida, it's a little, well, security's there somewhat. There's things that we need. And look, as the school board for charter school, we've been talking about a new building and stuff. Now to me would be the time. We need to. We're gonna put some money into this building to harden it up as it is, I'm sure. But I mean, there are certain upgrades and stuff that a newer facility is going to show that would increase safety for those kids at the charter school. And I think we could sit there and I'm one of them. Not placing blame on the Broward School Board, but understand that there's things and responsibilities that they have to take and action they have to take now. But we as a school board for the charter school need to take action now also on certain things. I think as we look at bond issues and things, and listen, a lot of people are upset with the school board bond issue, the last one in 2014, as I had just stated. I think the school board needs to take a really good, hard look at a safety bond issue. I think it would be important to go ahead and put other people on a committee in charge of that, and whether it be police chiefs from the 5 largest agencies, or elected officials from the 5 largest cities, or something like that, to go ahead and see how this money is going to be spent, and to give voter confidence that it would do. I don't think I'd have a problem cutting a check for an increase in my taxes to make sure that kids are safe. And I don't think the people that came here today to complain about some of those other things would have a problem cutting a check either in their taxes. But I want people to understand, and it's the gun reform issue is huge. I'm not denying that. But understand there are other ways that make a difference, and understand there are other school shootings and shootings around the country that take place, that you could do all the gun laws you want. It's not going to stop some of those issues. It might make them smaller, and these type of weapons do make it easier. I'm not taking away from that. But if we really want to truly look at making schools safe, we have to look at a multitude of areas that need to be addressed and need to be addressed very quickly. So I'd ask residents if you have any questions, comments, concerns about that or any other issue, feel free to reach out to me. My cell phone number is 954-632-7544. Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor.
Thank you. Commissioner Carter?
Commissioner Vignola, regarding the school bond issue, they would have to have a deadline date because they don't seem to work well with implementation, in my opinion.
And that's something that could be worked on with if they were to do that.
One of the things that I wanted to say was that, I know that you think here at a local level that we're not accomplishing a lot. I spend hours upon hours making phone calls and sending emails to legislators, trying to get them to pass bills that benefit us, that help us. The governor's bill recently that for the $400 million to school resource officers, mental health issues, arming teachers, almost didn't pass because they were going to pull one thing out of because of one issue in it. Things can be modified so that they do pass and they still benefit us, but we spend hours trying to get that to go through. Not just the city of Coral Springs, all of our municipalities. So I want to make sure that you are aware of that. Congratulations to our chief. Looking forward to working with you. And you are my 5th. I did remember the other one, Chudnow. I had forgotten that one. I want to remind everybody that the Coral Springs Festival of the Arts will be having their 14th festival, not this weekend, but next weekend, which is St. Patrick's Day weekend, and that's in the Walk. And I hope that you'll come out and try to find some joy and happiness in the colorfulness of life. If you need to reach me or want to discuss anything, or you feel that there's something that we can do, please call me at 954-998-4186. Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor.
I want to keep my comments short today. I can tell everybody truthfully that every one of the members of this commission has been working day and night in their own way, doing things to help the situation that happened at Stoneman Douglas. In fact, at 12 o'clock today, I have a meeting with Lynn from the police department, and we're looking at something else to help these kids. All of these things I could not have done if I was sitting in jail. That was the point I was getting at. I had a meeting the night of the event with some people at the school. And one of the ladies from Tallahassee came up to me and she said to me, I just want to explain something to you, Lou. If it wasn't for the City of Coral Springs Police Department, this would have been 10 times worse. And when you stop and think about what she said, that is amazing. And I watched what happened with the replay, and Chief, you guys were over the moon. They're amazing. Is Frank here today? You're Frank today? A little shorter, but you're okay. Our EMS workers, our fire department, were just absolutely all over everything. So I want to publicly thank both our police and fire for helping the city of Parkland. Yes, yes. And I will not get into a conversation about the BSO. That was supposed to be a joke. Anyway, I can be contacted at 954-801-2004, and I will keep you informed as we move along on some of the projects that we're doing to help these kids. I was out there Sunday. We had that day of healing. I've never seen anything like that in my life. I mean, it was just amazing. Our police, our fire, our volunteers, our staff, our city staff were out there at North Community Park, and they were talking to these kids. And, I've had a handful of them walk up to me, and all they wanted was a hug. And they got it. So, and speaking of those kids, if something is going to be done after all the years that I've seen these situations happen, the kids from Marjorie Stoneman Douglas will get it done. Have you heard them? Have you heard them talk? They are amazing. They're making noise all over the United States. So let's support them. There's fundraisers going on all over the city about getting the funds to get them up there in Washington. Help them get up there, because these kids are going to get something done. I feel that in my heart. With that, anybody? Yeah, we
Can I
have
just
two
go back to
things,
one thing
yeah.
real quick?
Yeah.
I just want everyone, and I know everyone talks about, and understandably so, we lost 17 people here in our community. Understand that there were 15 other kids that were wounded, and countless other kids that are emotionally wounded that is going to stick with them, and teachers and staff, that's going to stick with them forever. Listen, wave to your neighbor when you see him and that teenager drives down in the car, whatever. You'd be shocked at how much sometimes that can make a difference in times like this. I remember when I was young, I had a good friend that died, and I was down. And just I was driving down the street, and someone just waved to me. And I'll never forget it, just smiling a wave, how much that, made me feel better. Try to be there for one another in the community. Unfortunately, when talking to people from around the country and in different places that have had similar situations, there is a large concern with the effects over the next few years when it comes to depression by those affected. And just please keep that in mind. Try to be a little nicer to your neighbors and stuff. And I know the Vice Mayor was talking about the kids from Stoneman Douglas and how impressive they are. And they absolutely are. And they are doing an amazing job. And, I went to Douglas when Columbine High happened. That was my senior year, and we did nothing. And to sit there and watch these kids go ahead and fight for what they believe in is really amazing. But the other cool thing that really impresses me is, and I do that group with the Team Political Forum kids, is these kids from these other schools, how they're rallying around them and supporting them and understanding it's not just Douglas, it's all the kids across the country. And our community and across. And they're doing some really cool things out there. And, as much as we like this, as we get older, I find myself doing more and more complaining about the youth, right? There's some really special kids coming up, and they're going to do a much better job than we ever did.
Thank you, Commissioner. We
Hey,
have,
Vice Mayor.
yes, Dan?
I mentioned one other thing I forgot to mention during my comments. I'm sorry, guys. Also, based on the meeting with the Broward County mayors the other day, we are, a couple of years ago, the Broward League of Cities had done a school resource officer task force that had members of local governments, the county, BSO, Police Chiefs Association, Fire Chiefs Association, folks like that, making recommendations on whether all schools needed SROs, and it was the precursor to the implementation program, and actually having, although they don't pay much, having the school board pay a portion for school resource officers. So what we've done is we've kind of restructured that committee. We're going to stand it back up through the Broward League of Cities. I believe the name is the School and Community Safety Task Force. It will likely be co-chaired by Sunrise Mayor Mike Ryan, and either the Broward County Mayor Beam Fur or his designee from the County Commission, because I wanted it to be a county and city effort that's also going to include the same or similar members as last time. So a representative of the school board, a representative of school administration. So you've got folks from a high school, middle school, and elementary school, just trying to cover all the bases. And when I say, look, a lot of times people say, oh, we're going to send it to a committee, right? And that's where things go to die. We have been very clear that the timeline is pretty quick. They are to meet and gather recommendations and make a consensus recommendation and report by April 30th. So there is a hard deadline. That's why we're getting them rolling right now. Because I don't want this to be an issue that gets belabored. We need action. So I just wanted to keep everybody aware of that as well.
Okay, before we finish the comments, Melissa, did you have something to say?
No, I do not.
Okay. John, did you have anything you want to?
I'll keep you updated from the meeting that we have tomorrow. But in addition, we have one more item in policy formation.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that, what about the
Two more
annual
items.
financial support report? John?
Yeah, it's two items, actually. I'm
Two
looking
items,
at the
yeah.
old agenda. Yeah.
Okay, Kim? Did you want to?
Good morning. My name's Brett Friedman. I'm a partner with RSM, the external auditors, and I have with me Neil Harris, who's the senior manager. First, I just wanted to thank Melissa Heller, Kim Moskowitz, and the finance staff. They're extremely responsive. They really help us to get the audit done efficiently. I have to tell you, we do this all over the state, and this city is always one of the first to be finished. And that's because of all their efforts and their work in getting things prepared. Now, you should have 2 items in your package. The large one, this huge book, this is your comprehensive annual financial report. This is all done by staff. We just issue an opinion, and the best opinion we can issue is an unmodified opinion that's fairly presented, and that's what we've provided here. The smaller document is just some required communications that we'll just take a couple minutes just to quickly walk you through. Just the first is that we did the audit in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards, government auditing standards, and our arrangement letter with the city, which was dated November 30th. At the start of the audit, we sent a letter to all the commissioners just kind of outlining the scope of the audit and the timing. And again, obviously, thanks to the staff, we were able to stay with that timing. As far as accounting policies, we like to point these out because these are things that will have a significant change in the financials. In the current year, there were 2 accounting policies, GASB Statement 74 on financial reporting for post-employment benefits, and also GASB Statement 77 on tax abatement. These just had an impact as far as disclosure, no other real major impact there. During the audit, we did not identify any significant or unusual transactions or activities that have no authoritative guidance. Everything was done basically in accordance with generally accepted accounting standards and generally accepted accounting principles. In a few minutes, Anil will just touch on some key estimates. We always like to bring that to your attention because a lot of what happens is cash in, cash out, but the estimates are where management has the greatest impact, so we'd like to just touch on those. Another thing just to point out is we did not have any audit adjustments or any uncorrected misstatements. That, again, is a representation not of us not finding anything, but of the quality of the work done by your team. And just want to point that out because when you get financial reports throughout the year, you can really rely on them because they do a thorough job, and we really try to hit them hard and find things, but we didn't find anything this year. We didn't encounter any disagreements with management. As far as we're aware, there were no consultations with other auditors. We also did not have any significant findings, and I'll turn it over to Anil.
Thank you, Brett. As Brett mentioned, in putting together the financial statements, there's a number of significant accounting estimates, which are the larger balances on the financial statements. And including on page 3 and 4 are lists of these estimates, which include accounting for self-insurance liability, accounting for the pension liabilities and related amounts. There are also estimates related to the depreciation of capital assets, the allowance on your accounts receivable, and as well as accounting for post-employment benefits. Most of these estimates are based on actuarial methods and assumptions. As part of the audit, we review the estimates for reasonableness. We also have our actuaries look at the estimates to make sure they're in accordance with the actual standards of practice. And based on our reviews and test work, we found that these estimates, and as they have reported, are in compliance with all practices. In addition to our report in the financial statements, we also issue reports on the city's compliance with their grant agreements and contracts, and that's included in the financial statements on the single audit tab. For the current year, our reports are unmodified, similar to the financial statements, meaning we did not find any significant issues. There is one item we did report, or a finding related to the reporting of 2 grantors. We determined that the item is not a material non-compliance, but it is an item we had to report. Management has responded with a corrective action to address the issue going forward, and we believe that corrective action is proper and the issue will not repeat itself in the current year. And with that, we'll take any questions you may have.
Any questions? Dan?
Second.
I move to accept, she seconded.
Okay, move to accept, seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
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 If I may add briefly, before the auditors step away, this clean audit opinion, and clean is sort of the word that is the general word for now unmodified, but it is truly a testament to the work that goes on every day in all of your departments. Every single invoice, every single requisition, every single purchase order, at the end of the day, adds up to something very, very important, and that is the credibility of the financial report before you. So thank you very much to all of the staff that contribute to the fine bureaucracy that goes into creating a sound financial report.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate it. Our next item is appointment to the CRA Community Redevelopment Agency Board of Directors. Deb, did you?
That's you.
No, no,
Oh, that's Dan.
On the committee.
no, it's mine. Your name is next to it. Did you want to say something on it?
I can say that there are currently 4 positions up for reappointment, and you have 5 candidates. Four wish to, how many? 4 wish to continue. They're broken down by category, and you'll see that on your summary sheet.
Our CRA is making some strides, and I don't think you jump off a horse midstream. I appreciate the applicant who's applying that's not currently on the CRA. However, I think we have a really well-working board. I think things are going in the right direction. There's obviously been a lot of things happening as of late. So I would be in favor of keeping the people that were there, although it is your committee, so I
Yes.
think you should be making any motions.
Yes, the comment I want to say is I've attended to every single meeting that the CRA has had, and I have watched them in action, and I really don't know how we can get a better crew. They all know what they're doing, and they're all personally invested in what we're doing. And look at this building and what's happening next door, and what's happening for the downtown. I think it would be prudent for us to keep them together as a team for the near future, because things are happening and they're right on top of everything. So before we take a vote, thank you for what you do. But somebody want to make that vote?
Motion?
I'll make the motion. Can I do them all in one motion?
Yep.
Make the motion that we reappoint John Walsh, Lorna Brown Burton, William Vasquez, and Andrew Caston in their appropriate categories that they currently serve.
And John is the
Motion, we're
chairman.
looking for a second.
I know, but for John as the chairman?
Yeah, that comes
Another
later.
vote? Okay, okay,
I second it.
okay. Any questions? Is Dan there? Is he gone?
Still there.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? It passes unanimously. Now, we need to make a motion for John for the for chairman of it, right?
No, we don't do
No.
that. They do that.
Okay. Very good. Before we leave, I want to thank everybody for showing up today, for speaking, and it was emotional. A lot of stuff is being emotional. But it's good to have you come, and we cannot run the city without your input. And I just wish we could fill up this room. We got plenty of room now, so. Chief, thank you so much. Fire, Jim, thank you for your help. Rick, Dale, everybody, thank you so much. And with that, the meeting's adjourned.